To do the double chain bind off to match the Chinese Waitress Cast-On, you're going to start by purling the first stitch, but instead of wrapping the yarn like you normally do, counterclockwise, you're going to wrap it clockwise, okay? I'm going to show you American style, don't worry. So this is continental style. You'll wrap the yarn clockwise on that first purl stitch. Now, yarn over. Now, go to purl again, bring the yarn forward just to purl again, and again, wrap the yarn clockwise instead of counterclockwise on that purl stitch. Now, put your left hand needle into the yarn over and pass the yarn over the first stitch on the right hand needle, and then pass that first purl stitch over the second stitch, that first purl stitch over the first stitch on the right hand needle, and you've bound off one stitch. Do another yarn over and bring the yarn to the front to purl, and just purl that stitch, making sure that you wrap the opposite way that you normally would. Okay? Bring the yarn over and off that right hand needle, and bring that first purl stitch over and off. Now, if you've done Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, this is going to be very familiar to you because this is like the purl, pretty much the purl version of that, and I'm going to give you a little bit more information, but let's see it again, right? So, American style, we've got the yarn in front, and we're going to do a yarn over. So bring the yarn back to the front, okay? We'll purl the stitch, but instead of wrapping counterclockwise like you always do, wrap the yarn clockwise, and remove the stitch. Just bring the yarn to the back so that you can see everything, and then with the left hand needle, lift the yarn over the first stitch on the right hand needle, and lift that second purl stitch over the first purl stitch on the right hand needle. And you can see the bind off starting to form. Okay? Yarn over, and bring the yarn back to the front because we're going to purl. Purl the stitch, wrapping the yarn the wrong way. Bring the yarn to the back so you can see everything. Lift the yarn over and off the first stitch on the right hand needle, and the second purl stitch over and off. Okay, I'll keep going. So this is a bind off invented by Anne Kingstone. Thank you so much, Anne, for sharing this with us. Okay, so what's different between this and Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, purl version only, is that trick where we wrap the yarn the wrong way around the needle when we do the purl stitch. Other than that, this is the same. And the reason we do that is because if you wrap the yarn the right way, and you can try it yourself and look at your bind off and see the difference, but if you wrap the yarn the normal way around the stitch, you get a bump right here between these little V's, and when you wrap it the wrong way, you get these perfect double chain of V's that's exactly matching the Chinese Waitress Cast-On. So I'm going to show it to you really slow, just a couple times so that you can make sure that you get the idea. This is continental style, starting with that purl stitch on the right hand needle, yarn over. So we wrap the needle around the yarn from back to front, like that. Okay, bring the yarn to the front to purl, and wrap the needle over the yarn, and push the yarn through. And remove the stitch from the left hand needle. Using the left hand needle, lift the yarn over and off the first purl stitch, and then lift the second purl stitch over and off the first purl stitch. Okay, if you're going to do it American style, no problem. We're going to yarn over like normal. Okay, so bring the yarn to the front. Now we're going to bring the yarn to the front again to purl. Insert the needle as if to purl, and instead of wrapping your yarn around the back, wrap it around the front, clockwise. Push the yarn through. Bring the yarn to the back so you can see everything, and lift the stitch in the middle over and off the first one, and lift the second stitch over and off the first one. You can do it, Leah. There we go. Okay, as you can see, I haven't knitted American style in quite a while. Regular yarn over, bring the yarn to the front to purl, bring the needle over and across the yarn, purl that stitch. So, and it would be interesting, it was interesting for me to do the experiment to see what's the difference between this and Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, and I was pleasantly surprised that this really is an even better match for Chinese Waitress Cast-On. So, Just pulling that very long tail unsuccessfully through that last loop, trying to show you what that's going to look like. There we go. Double chain or Chinese waitress bind off.
Trying to learn and master knitting on your own is frustrating. That's why I created Knitting Superstar University, a video knitting school that teaches you everything you need to know to knit any project with confidence. Get instant access today at knitfreedom.com.